I call to order the meeting of the Common Council for November 2nd, 2021. Clerk?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We have 12 present, either virtually or in the room, and 12 present in civic clerk and voting.
Very good. Thank you. Now please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation led by Alder Chris Weary. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alder Weary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This prayer, as suggested by my parish pastor at St. Agnes, Father Patrick Bino. It's from a prayer book that the Catholic school system compiled. All the prayers are written by students. The author of this prayer is Paola, an 8th grade student. Dear Father, I pray that you help me understand every moment that has been difficult in my life and everyone else's life. Help me understand the purpose that you have for me with every challenge you give me. Give me patience and allow me to take everything with calmness. Amen.
Thank you, Alder. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax to approve the minutes from the October 19, 2021 Common Council meeting. Any changes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Approve of the agenda.
Second.
Motion to approve made by Alder Vanderleest, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. Any changes here? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The agenda has been approved. Just a couple notes under the report by the mayor tonight. Couple things coming forward, one from our RDA and one from our EDA that I wanted to note for you all. H.J. Martin Development, just wanted to compliment and thank the Martin family for their work with our Community and Economic Development Department, led by Neil Steck-Schulte, of course, who's been very flexible and cooperating on these terms. So looking forward to that development moving forward, revitalization of that old Shopco, and hopefully, some further activity in the near future in terms of potentially some new housing over there. Also wanted to thank the Mosky Corporation, Paul Kosmosky, and his entire team for the development that's moving forward. Thanks to the support of our Economic Development Authority and our staff here again, who presented with a really kind of a complicated financial situation, have, I think, navigated that really well to the benefit of both Kosmosky's team and the city as well. So bringing in some additional tax base and additional housing, which is really what we're in the business of doing here in the city of Green Bay. So looking for approval on those tonight, and thanks again to everybody who was involved in making those possible. And then just a quick note on the budget. Obviously, we've had some discussion out in the community, a couple town hall meetings. We do have our joint finance and personnel meeting coming up tomorrow, led by Alder Dorf as our chair. I just wanted to flag that for everybody here, as well as those following virtually. That'll be 1 p.m. tomorrow. And then our Common Council discussion on the budget will be the following week, November 9th at 4 p.m. So looking forward to some public attendance for both of those discussions. And with that, we'll move along to announcements. Alder Dorf.
I just want to remind everyone that the meeting tomorrow is via Zoom. We do have some items for our regular personnel and finance meetings, but the ones we will be discussing before the budget portion have to do are relevant to the budget. So please join us at 1 if you can. And then we will end that meeting, then we'll reconvene after the budget session, and we'll finish up the rest of the items for the regular personnel and finance meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Weary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, regarding the joint budget meeting, we had welcomed that, public input, and I think that's so vital, especially at budget time. It's unfortunate that we're meeting during the day. These really should be held at night. Most people work, and they're not going to take off time of work to come to a budget meeting. You know, I don't even know if every alder person can make it. You know, for me, where I work, we have a blackout period right now. You can't take vacation, so I'll submit my comments, but I can't be there because it's in the middle of the day. So just thought for the future. I mean, for years, it was always in the evening, and you got better attendance, so it's unfortunate. And then, secondly, you know, regarding our police shortage issue, a lot of police officers right now that other cities are turning their backs on, I think are welcome here. And I think a lot of us would agree with that. We should encourage them to apply here. There's some really good veteran heroes, policemen from around the country who are going to find themselves without a job. And I think we'd be well off to look to them to help with our shortage. Thanks.
Thanks, Alder. Any additional announcements from council? And just so folks know, I'm having some issues with Zoom, so I'll be looking at the screen over here and up there to try to identify alders who are wanting to speak if they haven't pushed their buttons, the ones that are participating remotely. But anyway, just wanted to let you know I'm doing my best to keep an eye on you who are virtually participating. All right, seeing no additional announcements, we will move along to appointments. Just one reappointment here.
Motion to approve.
Motion has been made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Lefebvre to approve the reappointment in front of us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that reappointment has been confirmed. We have a public hearing here. Miscellaneous ordinance number 03-21, an ordinance adopting an amendment to the Smart Growth 2022 Comprehensive Plan of the City of Green Bay pertaining to property located in the 1420 block of South Huron Road. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this item? Anyone here who would like to speak to this item?
Yes, this is Paul Kosmowski. I'm just available for if there's any questions.
Okay, very good, Mr. Kosmowski. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no one here to speak to this item, we'll move along to ordinance's second reading for adoption.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion has been made to suspend the rules and take up these ordinances with one roll call vote. That was made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stoyer. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will use the board.
Thank you, alders. You may vote. And alders Lefebvre and Weary, how would you like to be recorded?
Aye.
Thank you. And Alder Lefebvre?
Alder Lefebvre votes aye.
Yes, thank you very much. And here's the display.
And those ordinances are adopted unanimously. On to the report of the Redevelopment Authority. Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf. Any discussion on this item? Alder Stoyer.
I'd like to just get a little brief description from Director Stuck Schulte on it. I know it's like a 3-year temporary use, or no?
Sorry, I was I was shaking my head at Mike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can go to
And that
Director
could be
Steck.
either now or in the planning commission as
Yep,
well.
absolutely.
Either one. I just need a little description.
Sure. Director Steck Schulte?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Alder Stoyer, thank you. This essentially is a development agreement, essentially outlining some terms, outlining the future redevelopment of the site at 216 Military Avenue, the former Shopko site. Essentially, the owner, the Martin family, is looking to do some temporary usage there in advance of hopefully eventually redeveloping the site. On its own, it would be difficult for staff to recommend approval for the reuse of the site, as it would not be consistent with the existing zoning and comprehensive plan for the site. However, in terms of by entering into a development agreement here with the Martins for submitting a plan within the next, hopefully 3 years, with the ability to expand that if necessary, staff felt comfortable permitting the temporary use, and essentially is in conjunction. So these two items are kind of being brought forward together. So basically, by agreeing to the temporary use, and then submitting to a redevelopment plan for the remainder of the site. So the uses that they are looking at specifically are some industrial warehouse storage, some training facilities related to their own operations, and as well as a healthcare provider doing some maintenance and repair work on some of their own equipment in kind of different sections of the building. So those have been specifically identified as the permitted uses in the temporary PUD.
Okay, one other question. When the 3 years is up, or whenever that time is up, is that something that your office will work hand in hand with Martin on, or will they bring a plan to you, or what do you foresee happening possibly with that?
Yeah, absolutely. If a redevelopment plan moves forward, certainly that would come forward, certainly through the Martins as the owner or through their assigned representative at that time. If that happens within the next 3 years, we will certainly proceed accordingly and then evaluate the temporary use at that time. If we get to that point and there is not a redevelopment that is proceeded, or they have not submitted a concept plan, so they have the ability to make that request through my office and then on to the Plan Commission and Council for an extension.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any additional comments or questions? Alder Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of those items I hope receives unanimous support tonight, and I want to applaud Director Steck-Schulte on the creativity around this. Typically we're not doing a development agreement unless it's city-owned property or if it's a TIF incentive of some sort. And this is what really created an outlet for us to ensure or maybe calm some of those concerns that this could potentially turn into a long-term permanent use for that existing facility. But even if it were to turn into that use, I'm not necessarily opposed, provided that we can get some of that retail, up on the front, which honors the comprehensive plan and what we're trying to do in that area. There was a Wall Street Journal article that published not long ago that really talked about, when you think of dying malls, Easttown Malls as an example, and what a lot of developers are doing is using that back end space for warehousing, light industrial, while moving that retail into smaller footprints up in the front end. And here, obviously, that's something, a concept that the Martin family has discussed. But at the end of the day, what they come up with, I think, is to be determined. This is a perfect temporary use of that facility, which is way better than watching an idle site, and it gives the city the ability to still have to approve some future outcomes of that. So to me, first and foremost, this is a vote in favor of the Martin family, who time and time again has proven that they don't sit on properties to sit on them. They redevelop what they have. They have a strong track record here in our community, and I would enthusiastically support this for that reason.
Thanks, Alder. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved. Improvement and Services Committee.
To approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. Any items here to be handled separately?
Number 6.
6. 3, 6. Any others? All right, items 3 and 6 will be handled separately. Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of items 3 and 6. Your wishes on items 3?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf. The item was pulled by Alder Stoyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to ask Director Grunier a question. Will the tipping fees be adjusted if the county receives more monies for recyclables? It seems like that there's been a advance in that, and I'm just wondering how that might work out for us.
The tipping fees are determined by the county on an annual basis, so if they were to receive more money than they were anticipating in 2022, that would be taken into account for the 2023 tipping rates.
Okay, so you're pretty comfortable with the overall agreement that's out there? I didn't miss the meeting. So
the overall agreement has not changed significantly from the agreement that the city has, all the municipalities in Brown County have held with Brown County for the past decade or more. The big reason that the change here is to reflect the opening of the new landfill in southern Brown County that will start in 2022, and to make the agreements run concurrently with that landfill.
Okay, thank you. That's what I needed.
Thanks, Alder. Any additional comments or questions on that item? Seeing none, all in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, that item has been approved. On to item 6.
No, I motion to approve the proposed 2022 parking division rate structure.
Yep.
Because it says to hold.
Yep, motion to approve made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Scannell. Discussion on this item? Alder Dorf?
So I attended the Improvement Services Committee meeting and was concerned after they held this, because I know this is something we need to get done before the budget meeting is held. And so I believe that Director Grenier has also reached out to the members of Improvement Services, and I will leave it up to Alder Scannell at this point to talk about that.
Very good. Alder Scannell?
Well, I don't have too much to add, other than, as Alder said, we need to have this done for the meeting tomorrow. The rates are, I mean, we discussed this pretty well, thoroughly at the commission meeting. We just decided to hold it because we thought we had time. But otherwise, I think we would have passed it otherwise. I think, we were all just hoping maybe there might be something else to look at. But that's not the case, so I think we're all in agreement this needs to move on.
Very good. Any other comments? Alder Steuer and then Alder Gerlach?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is for Director Grenier. Over the last 3 years, we've gone up with our meter rates just a nickel, but it's 85 cents in 19 and 20. It was 90 cents. Now it's 95. And I think one of the reasons it was mentioned was the pandemic caused some issues with that. Do you feel that these small increments will help make up for some of the lost revenues? And how else besides citations and tickets might help in this matter?
Yeah, every year staff takes a look at both the rates and the fees, and we try to be sensitive to where we're applying any increases that we may see. Citations are not necessarily looked at as a quote-unquote revenue source. With citations, the goal is compliance, not revenue generation. The revenue really should be generated from the users of the system. So we do tend to skew our desire more towards the rate structure as opposed to the citations, and raise the citation rates when we're finding non-compliance. In answer to your first question, Alder, I don't think we're going to make up any lost revenue, but we do believe that by taking a look at the anticipated number of parking patrons that we're going to have in 2022 and the rates that we have proposed, that will allow us to close the loop, as it were. Our revenue generation will equal the expected expenses for 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Gerlach?
I just wanted to say that I missed that meeting. First time I've ever missed a meeting of Improvement in Services, but I did view the video and have looked at the email that Director Grenier sent the committee today. And I have complete faith that the staff has analyzed this carefully, and that this is a modest increase and manageable. And he does point out in his email that if we don't pass this, if we don't find more revenue, the parking division, which is self-sufficient, is going to have to experience some significant cuts. So I'm absolutely in favor of this.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments?
I do, Mayor.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Alder.
Thank you. Director Grenier, thank you for the email today. Sorry you couldn't attend the meeting last week. Regarding the revenue shortages the last few years, has it been significant? Can you kind of give us a ballpark of what we're looking at from a fiscal standpoint?
Sure. It's been in excess of $200,000 a year. So we've had to pull that out of the reserves, the meager reserves we had. I think you may remember, Alder, a couple of years ago when we were looking at raising rates, we had talked about putting some money away for a rainy day.
Yeah.
The last 18 to 20 months, it's rained pretty constantly in the parking division. So we've actually exhausted all of those reserve funds, and then we have had to defer or not go into certain capital expenditures for equipment replacement, and instead we've used the money that we would have put forward for those activities just to keep our operations solvent over the last 2 years. So
I remember 2 to 3 years ago, there was some discussion about raising the revenue through parking meter rate increases to perhaps save money towards a parking structure that will be needed in the future. That's not, this situation is not taking that in account, is it? This is just basically to cover the expenses?
that is correct. If you'd like to see the numbers, I'd be more than happy to share them with you. But what we're anticipating with revenue generation equals to the penny what our anticipated expenses for 22 are.
Sure, and Mr. Pierlot always does a great job explaining that at the committee level, so that's not needed. I guess my final question, just for the sake of due diligence, parking revenue for the last year, let's just say year and a half due to COVID, for the ARPA funds, could someone from the administration, doesn't necessarily, can you assure us that we cannot use the ARPA funds for the loss of parking meter revenue through the pandemic?
And I can start that, and then I'll turn either to Director Ellenbecker or to the mayor. My understanding, the way that it's been explained to me, is the lost revenue since COVID began went into a formula that determines how much of that ARPA money can be used for that purpose. But what we cannot do is take that lost revenue calculation ARPA money and use it to plug a budget hole, if you will. So that's the very condensed engineer version. And then I'll let Director Ellenbecker expound if that's necessary.
Correct. Director Grenier is correct. There is something called the loss revenue calculation, and it had to be done at an entity wide. So if in some cases where your revenue was up, some cases your revenue was down. That includes TIDS. That's every division within the city. And so we did have a calculation loss, and we are able to use that ARPA money in this calculation loss. However, again, it's at entity wide, so we can't say this one much was parking loss. This was babies. This was not general fund. It was at entity wide. But once that has been determined that it is loss revenue calculation, it is a wider type of expenses we can use it on. However, we can't pay down debt. We can't put it, as Mr. Director Grenier just said, like in a rainy day fund. We can't put it in fund balance. We can't hold it for another year. We can't use it for an operational budget. What we could use it is for capital equipment or maybe repairs in the future, so we wouldn't have to levy maybe for repairs. There's things we can use for, and it could be used for parking utility expenses or parking division expenses, but we cannot just put it in a budget to kind of cover what they lost in the last year or two.
Thank you, directors. No other questions, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Alder Galvin.
Director Grenier, you said we've lost about roughly $200,000 for the last 2 years.
Actually, I believe the losses in 2020 were over $200,000, and we're well over 125 to 130 right now for 2021.
Okay, and what year was it you asked for a rate increase?
Oh, well, the history that we show for parking are monthly rentals. So those folks who rent either in surface lots or in the ramps, but on a monthly basis, 2019, 20, and 21, we had 2% rate increases there. We're requesting a 3% this year. The hourly rate, so if you don't hold a parking pass, but rather you pay as you go, in the ramps, we have had no change in those parking rates since 2019. The Adams Street lot and the river ramp is behind the former Children's Museum of Green Bay and in front of the watermark. We manage that ramp on behalf of Foxconn. That has had in 2018, 19, 20, and 21, there was no change there. We're proposing to bring that up to $1.10 an hour from $1 an hour. The meters, in 19, we had no change. In 20, we went up to 90 cents an hour. In 21, we had no change. And in 22, we are proposing to go up to 95 cents an hour.
Okay, but I guess what I'm trying to get a grasp on is the losses this year and last year, was that due to us not raising to the rates that you had requested?
No, sir. We believe that that is 100% due to the occupancy of the ramps. The lion's share of the money is generated by our monthly rentals. So anyone who works in the downtown on a daily basis and rents a stall from us, we're right now at about 50% of pre-pandemic occupancy within the ramps. We do expect that to come up somewhat, but we have seen with several businesses that they have shifted their work model, like a lot of businesses have, and they are continuing to have a significant work from home component, reducing the number of monthly parkers that they have there. And unfortunately, the way things work, when we have to be able to financially close the loop because we are a special revenue fund, if that bottom number doesn't change, your expense line doesn't change, and you have to spread it out over a lesser number of paying patrons, the cost per patron does go up. I mean, that's just simple mathematics.
Okay, and if it doesn't go up, or the amount of rentals don't go up, or the rates don't go up, this could eventually end up being a levy issue instead of trying to make up the difference?
I can't make that decision, sir. That's something you would have to do as a council, but we are at the point right now where we can't continue to operate the parking division as we have known the parking division to exist for decades as a special revenue fund. We simply aren't generating enough revenue to cover the expenses that we have. So something would have to fundamentally change. Now, whether that means the parking division, and bear in mind, parking in a pre-pandemic state, parking was about a $3.5 million a year exercise. Okay, that's how much that fund takes in expenses on an annual basis. So either we would have to add $3.5 million to the levy, or in a worst case scenario, the parking division simply ceases to exist as it exists today. It goes away.
All right, thank you very much for that information.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments or questions? Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. It's just more of a point of clarification than anything, because there were a couple of questions that were posed about how several years ago we opted not to raise the rates, and that was really because at the time, the parking utility was trying to, I guess, save up thousands of dollars for the future construction of a ramp that was going to cost tens of millions of dollars. And it was just kind of, I think, a philosophical discussion at the time about whether or not that was something we wanted to do. And so these are definitely pandemic losses from everything I'm hearing from Director Grenier, and with the rates that he's proposed, and to make sure that obviously the utility remains solvent. I mean, these make sense. So I support it, and I'm ready to take a vote unless there's any more discussion. But
Thanks, Alder. Any others? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The ayes have it. That item has been adopted. Report of the Protection and Policy Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder LaFave. Any items here to be handled separately?
3.
Item 3, any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 3. Motion to approve. Before we get into the item, I was just hoping that Attorney Chavez, could set the table for us so that we all understand exactly what we're dealing with here in terms of the process of this item. So Attorney Chavez. Might be muted.
Yes, I am. Thank you. So as we get into this item, I just want to make clear, hold on, let me pull up the item really quick, so I have the exact language in front of me. Give me 1 second. Okay, so the way this is written, what is important to understand is that no matter how this is actually drafted, the ultimate action being sought by this request is really a request for reconsideration. And under our existing rules for how we treat them, we follow Robert's rules, which requires that somebody who is in the affirmative must actually be the person to make that request. So with that, it is my opinion that this is not currently properly in front of this body based on that. So I want you all to be aware of that. And the reason I state that is because we have already moved forward with this organization. We've already moved forward with this, having had this conversation. And what we are asking to do is basically come back and revisit something that was already discussed in closed session and decided in closed session, or decided as part of the decision to move forward with them when we've hired this law firm. The other thing I do think is important to understand is that law firms, and this was discussed by Attorney Bungert when we were in, when you guys were at PMP, the rules of professional conduct are very clear as to what the role of an attorney is with respect to representation. And just because the person themselves, in this case, the organization of the city of Green Bay, isn't the one who's actually funding it, those rules of professional conduct stand in place, meaning that the city is still the one who's ultimately in charge. Who funds it is irrelevant to how the representation can actually be conducted. It has to follow the instructions that we've provided, and what we request happen is what ultimately has to be abided by. We have seen no evidence that anything has violated those rules, which would require us to look into this issue. And so there is no basis for us to be doing that unless we're going to start doing that for everybody who does business with the city of Green Bay.
Thank you, Attorney Chavez. So the appropriate motion is receive and place on file.
Yes, that is correct.
So I would entertain that motion. Motion to receive and place on file made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Galvin. Discussion? Alder Burnett?
I simply want to be voted as a no, recorded as a no. That's why I pulled it, made my comments at the committee level. I don't want to go into closed session again. It's the opposite of what I want. I want more transparency, not less. So I'm fine. I mean, discuss it if you want, but I simply want to be recorded as voting no on the receive and place on file. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Weary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would vote no as well. Congrats. I think it's a clever way to bury the item. I disagree entirely. I think it's a worthy discussion. I don't know if we really had an exact votes on what he's asking for. Maybe on an overreaching item, but not on this particular item in open session. So I'll be voting no. Thanks.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments?
Yeah.
Alder Scannell?
Since some alders want to have a discussion, let's have that discussion. It's long overdue, I think. There's lots on this topic that I think we've been skirting around, and maybe it's time we had that discussion, if that's what these alders want. It's not, I'm not breaking any confidences, and it would have to do, you'd rather not hear me out?
I'm sorry, Randy. It's just.
Alder Scannell, you have the floor.
Yes, believe me, I would rather not have this conversation too, but I've had it with these alders poking the bear. It's got to stop. And let's start with transparency. All this nonsense about transparency. The only transparency on our end is communicating with our lawyer, our attorney. That is appropriate. Nothing else has been discussed except for strategies on how to do this with our lawyer. There's no other transparency problem on our end. All the transparency, and I don't hear this from certain alders screaming transparency, is on the other end of this investigation. The groups that are pushing this, the dark money supporting them. Just a few days ago, I believe, Voss hired someone named Carol to go into this investigation. We don't even know the last name. We don't know what that person's supposed to be doing. That's transparency. A lot has been thrown around about partisanship. That worried about Law Forward being partisan. They are a nonprofit. They cannot be partisan. If you have evidence that they are partisan, you are being negligent in not reporting that evidence, so they lose their nonprofit status. No, ain't gonna happen. It's gonna be
Alder
loud.
Weary, Alder Scannell has the floor.
Yeah. So, well, I'm fine. I'll have a stroke if I try to wheel it back. So if you have evidence that they're a nonprofit, I want to see that evidence. That's the problem all along here, all you guys. Bringing up all these allegations. This whole investigation, a plethora of allegations. No evidence, zero evidence. That's irresponsible to be making these allegations and have nothing to back them up with. You show me the evidence, if it's sound, I'll back you. You've got no evidence. And to keep going on like this is just irresponsible. This investigation, let's look at this investigation. That's where the partisanship comes in. This has been going on for a year now, since the election.
Point of order, is this regarding the request today before us? To know
Yes.
a list of funders and donors? This is
To receive and place on file. This has to do with...
You're way off base on this now.
Alder Scannell, just make sure your comments are on the item.
Is the motion to, well, we did change the motion from what I thought it was going to be. It's the motion to receive and place on file, not to go into closed session, which is what I thought we'd be talking about.
Yeah, the motion is just to receive and place on file the item.
All right, I'll wrap it up. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Anybody else? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
A request has been made to use the board, so we will do so. Again, this is receive and place on file.
Thank you, Alders. You may vote. And Alders Johnson, Vanderlee, Stoyer, and LaFave.
Alder Vanderleest. Yeah, Alder Vanderleest votes nay.
Thank you. Johnson, Stoyer, LaFave.
Alder Johnson is nay.
Thank you.
Alder Stoyer votes nay.
Thank you. And Alder LaFave.
Alder LaFave votes aye.
Thank you. And here's the vote.
Having a little trouble here.
Oh, yes, it's, thank you, Mayor. It is 7 yes, 5 no, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you so much, Clerk. So that item is received and placed on file. Report of the Protection and Policy Committee granting operator licenses.
Approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Gerlach. Any names here to be handled separately or any abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved. Plan Commission. Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. Items here to be handled separately?
abstaining from item 2. The applicant is a member of my executive.
Alder Johnson would like to be noted as abstaining from item 2. All right. All in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been adopted. Public Arts. Motion to approve made by Alder LaFave, seconded by Alder Dorf. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Congratulations to Alder Gerlach. Report of the Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission. Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. Items here to be handled separately. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been approved. EDA. Motion to approve made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Scannell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report of the Economic Development Authority has been approved. Receive and place on file. Motion to receive and place on file the October building report was made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item is received and placed on file. Committee of the Whole, we have 2 items here. First is consideration with possible action on an ordinance establishing aldermanic districts in response to the 2020 census. Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Gerlach. Any discussion on the districts? Seeing none, all in favor? Alder Scannell?
Just for those constituents who will be moving into another district, it's been a pleasure serving you.
Thank you, Alder. All right, seeing no discussion, no additional discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Second item, consideration with possible action on an application from the Green Bay Botanical Gardens to expand their licensed premise for the purpose of their annual Garden of Lights, a special event here in the city of Green Bay.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Gerlach. Any discussion?
Mayor?
Yes, Alder Brunette, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Saw Ms. Garrett from the Botanical Gardens is on the line. I don't know if she needs to or wants to speak to the committee, or to the council, but what I will say is, as the alderman for the district, I fully support this. The Botanical Gardens is such a huge cultural asset to this side of town and to the greater community. They've been very responsive to neighborhood concerns as they have come up. I've actually participated in this event several times over the years, and despite the large amount of traffic in and out of that area, I think they've managed it extraordinarily well, especially using NWTC and traffic in and out of there. So, I mean, you're always going to have a few people with concerns here or there, but overall, it's a huge positive for the city. So I support this. What I'd like to do is just make a quick motion to open the floor, just so Ms. Garrett can address the council if she'd like.
Motion has been made to open the floor by Alder Brunette, seconded by Alder Stoyer. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is open. Ms. Garrett?
Thank you, Alder Brunette. I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, this is a big event for us, always has been, and COVID has caused us to change some of the ways we're doing things, and we want to make sure we're doing them in the right way and continue bringing this great event to our community. Thank you.
Susan, if you'd be so kind as to state your name and address for the council.
Sure, sorry. Susan Garrett. My business address is 2600 Larson Road, Green Bay 54303.
Thank you.
Motion to close the floor?
Motion to close the floor made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Brunette. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. Thanks so much for those comments, Ms. Garrett, and for all the work on behalf of the Botanical Garden. It's, as Alder Brunette said, a great asset for the community here, so appreciate everything you do.
Motion to approve.
Has been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved. Ordinance is first reading.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax, to take up these items with one roll call vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the rules are suspended.
Motion to adopt, or to advance.
You got it. Motion to advance made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Weary. Any discussion?
Mayor?
Alder Johnson?
If I could be shown as abstaining from item 2.
Very well. Alder Johnson would like to be noted as abstaining from item 2. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Those ordinances have been advanced to a second and final reading. On to ordinances first and final reading for adoption. Motion to adopt made by Alder Scannell. Actually, we need a 2/3 vote on suspension. Attorney Chavez? Yes, I believe we need a motion.
Yeah, I believe you do.
Motion to suspend the rules and adopt this item with one reading has been made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder LaFave. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The rules are suspended. Entertain a motion to adopt. Motion to adopt made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder LaFave. Discussion on this item? Seeing none, we will use the board.
Just give me a moment. I did select start vote. It's just a little slow tonight, so. Very slow. Okay. Alders, you may see the vote now. If you don't, please let me know.
Alder LaFave is an aye.
Thank you. And then Alders Stoyer, Dorf, and Johnson. Okay, and Alder Stoyer? Yes, okay, thank you. And here is your displayed vote.
And the ordinance has been adopted 11-1.
Yes, that is accurate.
On to petitions and communications. Alder Scannell's very excited not to see any. All right, on to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn made by Alder Scannell. Seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.